Hey everybody, and welcome to this explanation of the full cold supermoon in Taurus that happens on the 4th of December 2025 at 11:14. So yeah, I'm gonna talk all about the full moon. If you've heard this before, if you listen to me regular, then you can skip the next 10 minutes and listen to what I'm saying about the current full moon. So yeah, in astrology, the full moon serves as a powerful symbol of accumulation, endings, and also illumination. The moon is at its fullest, it's at its brightest compared to the new moon when we don't see it. So yeah, the full moon represents the peak of energy and the manifestations of intentions that we set in the new moon. So a phase in terms of new moon to full moon is about 28 to 30 days, maybe 31 days sometimes, but not really, it's more like 28 days. So yeah, we set intentions on the new moon, we've worked through them for the 4 weeks, and then at the full moon we evaluate and we let go, or we restart or continue. So the full moon invites us to reflect on our personal journeys, encouraging us to assess the progress that we've made and the lessons that we've made in the past year for some of you, or the past 28 days. So the increased energy of the full moon can bring emotions to the surface that are hidden deep within us. So sometimes we can feel overwhelmed and just really hypersensitive, but this offers us the opportunity to confront and release what no longer serves us. And by embracing this time of release that the full moon brings, we can create a space for new growth and transformation, allowing our true self to fully emerge more fully. Of course, if you listen to me, I work holistically, and I believe that self-refinement, progress, and personal development, change, whatever you want to call it, is more like a lifelong thing, rather than we get enlightened or we become healed. We are never healed, we are always healing. And sometimes when we think that we're completely healed, of course some trauma that used to bother us, when we work through it, it won't bother us or trigger us as much, but we have to allow ourselves that room as human beings to know that sometimes our past may influence our future, so that we can be aware of that and know how to deal with it. So when it is full moon, we can engage in practices that promote introspection, self-reflection, and thus gaining emotional, spiritual and psychological clarity. So journaling our thoughts and feelings can help us process any realizations that come up, and meditation can deepen our connection to our inner wisdom. And rituals such as lighting candles, creating altars, or performing release ceremonies can increase our spiritual insight, and this can make it easier for us to align with our higher self. So the full moon encourages us to use the moon's energy not just for personal reflection, but also for setting intentions for your future, and also integrating the lessons of your past while making way for new opportunities. So now I'm going to talk more about the esoteric. So this is the surface level meanings of the full moon energy and the effect it can have on us. So as I said, it's an increased time of full moon, moon energy, and this can lead to us being more sensitive and reflecting on all the endings that we've had in our life so far, or the endings that may be coming up in your life. And it encourages us to tap into our intuition, or our deductive reasoning skills, or logical, rational skills, whatever. Some of us are more intuitive, some of us are more logical. And anyway, it wants us to recognize the patterns and emotions that have been obscured in the shadows, or in your psyche, that you've buried, because a lot of us bury our trauma, and this is why a lot of us escape into our drug, alcohol, or Netflix and chill, and all other addictions that we may do, So the full moon and its light illuminates our inner landscape, so it's inward energy, whereas new moon is all about taking external actions, the full moon is all about going within and then reflecting on what you need to do at the coming new moon. So it wants us to confront truths that we may have been avoiding, and doing this can lead to greater self-respect, awareness, love, forgiveness, and deeper connection with yourself, because I'm a promoter of each person should become their own best friend and love themselves deeply, and this is how we can truly love others. And by acknowledging any feelings of regret, shame, guilt, bitterness, resentment and all of that, we can use this energy to manifest change within ourselves and growth, and transforming insights into actionable steps, or transforming those insights, if we are thinking about bitterness and regrets, into things we write down or voice note down or record ourselves saying, and we can make a strategic plan on how we can let go of resentment and guilt and shame. And remember, it's a journey, it's not a destination. We can also practice gratitude, and sometimes we can find it hard. We may not have things to be grateful for, but I'm a great believer that we can have at least one thing that we are grateful for, even if it's just the fact that you're breathing. Even sometimes you may not want to be, because I've been there. I know it can be depressed and stuff like that, but trying to focus on a positive can really help us, even though things could be bleak in your reality right now. So whether it be through visualization, affirmations, or releasing old habits and beliefs, the full moon energy gives us a chance for more personal empowerment, love and renewal. And by creating a ritual to honour our achievements and the lessons learned along the way, it can just help us feel more in sync. And actively using and engaging with the full moon energy not only increases our spiritual well-being and our mental, psychological well-being and physical and spiritual well-being, it also creates a deeper connection to the rhythms of nature and our own life cycle. So now I'm going to dig into the esoteric, spiritual, deeper meanings of the full moon phase. So again, as I said, it wants us to focus on psychological transformation and emotional and spiritual release, and it can guide us to navigate deeply rooted feelings and subconscious patterns if we're open to it, because of course the full moon happens for everyone and not everyone engages with it. But if you're willing to go within the full moon energy, it really allows us to dig into the realms of our psyche, our hidden fears, our desires and unresolved issues. And it really is a powerful catalyst for inner work and shadow work. And if you don't know what those are, research, because I'm all about the research, But in short, inner work is all about self-reflection and exploring your thoughts, emotions and beliefs and behaviours to gain a deeper understanding of yourself. It involves examining your inner world to heal past wounds, improve self-awareness and create personal growth. Shadow work is a specific aspect of inner work that focuses on uncovering and integrating the unconscious or repressed parts of yourself. So the bits that you buried, maybe when you was younger, your parents or someone said you shouldn't do that, you can't sing or something, you can't dance, and now you have this urging to be a dancer, but because you've been told that you cannot be one, so you can confront with dark aspects and the side of you that may be a bit aggressive, and a part of you that may be confident for some of you, because a lot of the time we are told not to, especially in English culture, not to be egotistical, and anything can be egotistical. If you have any form of self-confidence, then you're egotistical sort of thing, So shadow work includes facing your fears, insecurities and traumas and negative traits to embrace your wholeness fully. And by acknowledging and working through your darker aspects, you can achieve great self-acceptance and transformation. And by integrating all aspects of yourself, you become whole and then you'll be able to navigate the world in a better way. So yeah, full moon energy is all about embracing the duality of light and shadow, because full moon, we see it when the night sky, it's dark, but then we have this bright light, so it's a visual representation of light and shadow, light and darkness. And as we learn to balance our emotional responses and become more psychologically and spiritually grounded, we can gain wisdom from both our strengths and vulnerabilities, our weaknesses. And by being able to give ourselves space to facilitate this deeper exploration, we can journal to get in touch with our intuitive self, our higher self, meditate, and this can help us get more emotional clarity. And remember, in meditation, because there's a lot of myths, we don't need to still out all the voices, we just need to give ourselves the space to be mindful. Watch the voices, the inner critic that comes out. A lot of people say, I'm meditating wrong. No, meditation is all about you becoming aware of that mental chatter, and as you work through your trauma, you will realise that your mind gets quieter and quieter. And as someone who used to have lots of inner critical voices, and now have found that kind of still voice within me, I can vouch for it. And the only way I got there was by working through my psychological and emotional trauma, and I'm not a fool. I know the only way I can stay here is by daily working through it as well. So this is why I say that recovery, lifelong management, personal development, whatever you want to call it, is a journey. It is not a destination. So the symbolism of the full moon wants us to connect with the archetype of nurturing and intuition, and by inviting these esoteric insights into your routine and researching the symbolism of nurturing and intuition, so loving on yourself, self-care, positive self-care, not overindulging and calling it self-care like, oh look, I'm doing self-care, and drinking all the drink I want to drink, and indulging in all the food and then being reckless. No, that's not what healthy self-care is about. Providing yourself with the things that are nurturing yourself, so looking after your physical health, mental health and spiritual health, so we can empower ourselves to make psychological shifts, and this can lead to a more authentic expression of our emotions and our self-expression in general, and give us a clearer vision of our path ahead. And it can also increase our self-awareness and love, and strengthens our capacity to manifest our intentions as we move forward. So now I'm just going to talk a bit more about the rituals we can do. So again, as I said, we can set intention, whether we voice record them, write them down in a journal. We can create a sacred space. Some people do altars with candles and crystals and other symbolic representations, and whatever you choose, pictures, tarot cards. But remember, these are just symbols. The real power to transform is within you, and you can do it without tarot, crystals and all of that. But at the beginning of our journeys, we need to use these things to focus us on things higher than ourselves, so we can reflect on our goals, our intentions, and write down what we wish to release and what we aspire to invite into our lives. Rituals such as burning paper and then releasing our intentions to the universe, or burying our intentions in the earth, can symbolise letting go, and placing our new intentions visible on an altar, or sticking it up in your home or somewhere personal to you, or as a sort of like sticky note on your phone screen, something like that. Whatever you want to do. Also, visualization, different form of meditation, breath work meditation, mindfulness meditation, mantra meditation, can amplify your focus at this time. And as you sit in stillness, as still as you can get, and envision the light of the moon, surrounding you and nurturing you and charging your intentions, this can be really empowering, and it can also strengthen your commitment to your goals, but also can create a deeper connection with the rhythms of nature, allowing you to align your personal growth with the universe cycles. And engaging in these rituals can give you significant healing and manifest positive changes in your life if you're willing to take those daily steps to change your life and that positive action overall, as well as forgiving yourself for all your mistakes and realizing failure is part of the journey as much as success, you know. So ultimately, the full moon is about reflecting on your personal experiences and how they align with lunar cycles in general. Journaling your emotions can, reveal patterns in your life, such as some of you may feel a surge of creativity, or some of you may face emotional challenges or different things in between. And by identifying, these moments, these feelings, you can create a personal narrative that resonates with the full moon's energy, allowing you to recognize how it influences your life overall. Additionally, you can reflect on your relationship, the relationships you'll be having with yourself, or relationships in your life in general. Are they nurturing you, or are they taking away from your energy? What can you improve in your relationships? What can you improve in yourself to make sure that you create better and healthier relationships? Also, you could reflect on times where you felt really deeply connected to others and experienced an increase in intuition or connectedness. Can provide insights into unique sort of like spiritual vibrations present at this time, and just give you a sense of warmth or clarity on what you need to do in your relationships. As I said earlier, some of you may decide to let go of relationships, So ultimately, embracing and reflecting during the full moon energy can create a sense of gratitude and awareness, love and acceptance and forgiveness, increasing your ability to use the energy of the full moon for intention setting and healing. And by actively engaging with your past experiences and thinking about, your future and what you need to let go of in order to have the future you want, you can develop a richer connection to the full moon and moon cycles in general. And also, just allow the full moon and its presence to serve as a guiding light in your life. So yeah, that's the end of this. So this is a deep, cold moon where it's asking us to release our attachment to material things and to reconnect with the earth. So have you been feeling the weight of what you're clutching onto? Maybe you've been holding onto possessions that are gathering dust, the money beliefs that are stealing your sleep, the relationships you're maintaining from obligation or status, or people just expect you to be in this relationship or have this status or material things or whatever, rather than out of a want, or if you're clinging to a relationship out of love. This first full moon of winter before the winter solstice on the 21st, right, is about to illuminate precisely what's been dragging you down. And here's the thing, you already know what needs releasing, because us humans do. It's just that it can be so hard to give up things, right? Our intoxicating addictions to people, or maybe it's drugs, alcohol, binging, too much Netflix and chilling, whatever it is, right? And although you may have been sensing it for months, years or decades, that you're meant to be releasing things, you may not have done so, but this full cold supermoon in Taurus on the 4th of December is not messing about. It isn't just any full moon, it's a supermoon, meaning the moon's at its closest point to the earth, and this intensifies everything you're about to experience. So I'm Amani, by the way, your holistic astrological life coach, and I'm going to give you an in-depth explanation of all things full moon on the 4th of December. So your feelings around money, security, and what you genuinely value and want to take into the new year, because we're going into 2026, right, is going to be, illuminated and get proper intense as the full cold moon is calling us to release what needs to be released as the last full moon of 2026 5, right? Yeah, the last full moon of 2025. So, as I said, it happens at 11:14. It's a full cold supermoon in Taurus. It's in the Earth frequency, right? So it's all about release, material transformation, transforming our possessions, our values, and to reassess the things that we feel keep us secure, and to get outside of our comfort zone, thinking about the things we need to take into the new year. It happens in the 19th Sabin degree of Taurus, and the moon's opposing Venus, the sun's conjuncting Venus, the moon's making a square to the moon's north node, and the sun is also making a square to the moon's north node as well. And the Sabin symbology is a new continent rises out of the ocean. So this is apt, right? This is on point for 2026, getting rid of 2025, thinking about what you need to let go of, making your new year plans strategically and moving forward, right? It's a release gateway for, material attachments, outdated values, relationships, and false sense of securities as well. And of course, we can't just drop everything all at once, right? We're not just going to change miraculously overnight. It's about making a plan of how you're going to move forward. So let's talk about what's actually happening here. So that sensation when you're gripping something just because letting go feels scarier than staying stuck, right? But that's exactly what the full moon is challenging you to confront. At the 19th degrees of Taurus, the full moon is illuminating our relationship with all things material, whether it be money, possessions, or self-worth, values, as I said, our deep need for security that sometimes imprisons us rather than protects us, right? And here's what you need to understand about full moons. They're completion points, letting go, endings, right? They reveal what's been hiding and force you to acknowledge what you've been avoiding. And in the practical, stubborn Taurus, this full moon is asking you to release your grip on the very things you thought were keeping you safe. And because it's a super moon appearing between 14 to 30% brighter than usual, you can't ignore this energy, right? As the effects are bigger. So whatever has been simmering, bubbling beneath the surface around your finances, values, your material attachments, your attachments to toxic relationships and stuff like that, is about to boil over. The moon in Taurus connects you with your need for stability, yes, Taurus energy is earth energy, fixed earth energy, so it's like deeply attached to everything in the natural realm, plants, trees, growing your own vegetables and all of that, food, and everything that keeps you stable, like a home, shelter, love, nice food, Taurus rules our appetite in a way as well, and our sensuality, our need to be affectionate, have sex, hook up, whatever you want to call it. But it also reveals where that need for security has become obsession, right? Where you've been clinging to possessions, people, or patterns. Because, change, it's terrifying, right? It's scary, And this is why we love to stay in our comfort zones. Well, not love to stay. Ultimately, we get scared, right? So we can find it more easier to stay in something, even if it's bad for us, and do the things that are bad for us rather than do the good, right? So, during this full cold super moon, the sun is sitting opposite the moon in transformative Scorpio, creating what astrologers call the Taurus Scorpio axis, because Scorpio is a fixed water sign and Taurus is a fixed earth sign, and it's the mine versus ours tension, right? The 2nd and the 8th house. My resources, your resources, right? And it's asking you what you've been hoarding for yourself that needs sharing, and what said resources have you been avoiding responsibility for, and where have you confused self-reliance with isolation, right? For instance, if you've been avoiding difficult conversations about money in your relationships because you're afraid of losing control, this full moon is going to force that conversation. Or, perhaps you've been staying in a job you hate because the salary feels like security. You're about to feel the suffocation of that choice with crystal clarity. The Taurus Taurus full moon grounds intense Scorpio energies, right? Because sometimes Scorpio can just, it's fooled by Pluto, and Pluto can just force change rapidly upon us, right? But the Taurus full moon grounds the energy, so it makes transformation more practical. It gives us the practical grounding to change the things that we need to change, rather than it just being theoretical, to stay in the theory, something we think about. This full moon is asking us to write the plan, yes, but also carry on the plan, follow through in it. And it's not just going to bring us emotional truths, revelations. We're being asked to make touchable, tangible changes, as I said, to physically let go of something, to actually change your spending habits, not just think about it, to really release that relationship, not just withdraw emotionally while maintaining the form, not checking out mentally, but still, physically appearing as a couple, Think of it like this: Taurus is the soil, rich and fertile, but sometimes too compacted, and Scorpio is the composting process, breaking down what's dead so new life can emerge. This full moon is asking you to let some things decompose, go, but to trust that what needs dying needs to die so something better can grow, right? Okay, so now I'm just going to explain more about the cold moon and the meaning of it, and why it matters, and how it informs the work that we're doing, right? So the cold moon gets its name from the December cold that settles deep into the land during this time of year in the northern hemisphere, right? And it typically happens in December, and the earth is sleeping, growth appears to have stopped, everything looks dead on the surface, but beneath the frozen ground essential processes are happening, right? Seeds are stratifying, they need the cold to break down protective coatings so they can sprout again when the spring returns. And that's you right now. You're in the cold, dark season, you're releasing, breaking down, and it doesn't feel like growth, it feels like death maybe for some of you, but this death is necessary. The cold breaks down what needs breaking down, the darkness allows rest. The apparent, dormancy, non-movement, death, right, is actually deep transformation. So positively, the cold moon forces you to release what you can't carry through the winter. You learn to value only the essential. It brings clarity through darkness. When all the leaves are gone, you see the true structure. It teaches you to find warmth from within rather than external sources, like the sun of summer, right, or spring. It creates appreciation for simple comfort and genuine shelter. It reminds you that darkness and cold are necessary parts of the cycle, not problems to solve. But negatively, the cold moon can trigger depression, especially seasonal affective patterns. It can increase the scarcity, the lack mindset and fear of not having enough. Can create harshness and coldness in relationships, and it can manifest as emotional withdrawal or isolation, and it can intensify resistance to change when you're already feeling vulnerable. The best use of the cold moon energy is to release material possessions that you've been holding on to just in case something happens, right? Let them go before the new year. Complete financial clearing, if you can, pay off debts, close accounts that no longer serve you, simplify your money systems, practice voluntary simplicity, see what happens when you strip away excess and live with less, create cozy rituals that don't require consumption, candlelight, warm drinks, quiet reading, let relationships or commitments that drain your resources naturally complete their cycle. This lunar phase is like the composting season of your material world. Some things need to be laid to rest, broken down completely, so their nutrients can feed what grows next. The cold breaks down structures that appear solid but are actually dead. don't resist it, let it do its work, right? So in terms of the lunar energies that are involved in this full cold supermoon in Taurus, the sun's in Scorpio, right? And this is bringing penetrating awareness. It's illuminating what lays beneath your carefully constructed surface. You may not like what it reveals, the hidden fears, the unspoken resentments, the ways you've been deceiving yourself about what you really need, but that's the point. Scorpio doesn't do surface level healing. The moon in Taurus wants comfort and security. It heightens your appreciation for physical pleasure, but also increases your resistance to change. You know that stubborn feeling when someone tells you to let something go and you just dig your heels in deeper, right? That's Taurus moon energy. It's not bad, it just fits. The Venus influence here is fascinating. Venus rules both Taurus and Libra. She's highlighting your values, your relationships, your finances, and she's asking you, are these truly aligned with your authentic self, or are you maintaining them because you're afraid of what happens if you don't? So that's the questions to ask yourself, right? And the North Node square, even though I'm going to talk more about aspects later, creates tension between your comfort zone and your evolutionary path. The North Node in Aquarius is pulling you towards innovation, community, and a more future-orientated way of being. But the Taurus moon wants to stay cozy in the familiar. This square is the universe's way of saying your growth requires releasing old security patterns that no longer serve who you're becoming. And the contrast between Taurus's desire for stability and Scorpio's demand for transformation creates what I call productive tension. It's uncomfortable, yes, but it's this exact friction you need to move from being stuck to flowing, right? So in terms of the aspects, like I said, they are showing us exactly where the pressure points are during this full moon. So the moon's opposition to Venus, and that's separating at 7 degrees, and the sun's conjunction to Venus, which is a plane at 7 degrees, is where our emotional needs, which is represented by the moon, is in tension with our values, represented by Venus, and our identity, represented by the sun, is merging with the same values in Scorpio's transformative waters, right? So you're caught between what you actually need versus what you think you want, and between immediate gratification, that immediate pleasure that we get from, binging out on food and drugs and alcohol and intoxicating relationships. We get the pleasure, our needs met quickly, but sometimes we get that, well, a lot of the times, most of the times, right? And we get the high, but we get the low. So it's that tension point between immediate pleasure and deeper happiness, waiting for our happiness or getting our happiness now. So we may binge out on intoxicating relationships, just hooking up and stuff, and just like, I want my pleasure now, but that can get in the way of like finding the right person for you in the long run by checking things like compatibility, getting to know someone slowly and stuff, or taking that drug and getting that high versus, spending 5 to 10 years working on yourself, doing that deep inner and shadow work, which can be long and drawn out, but is necessary so you can find that happiness from within, right? So, for instance, if you've been buying things to soothe your emotions, using shopping as therapy, material gifts as substitutes for real intimacy, these aspects illuminate that pattern, bringing it to your attention, right? And you can feel the emptiness of it, even if it satisfied you at one time, right? You can just feel that emptiness of it all right now, and the way the high hits you just fades faster each time. And we all know that, like, the first time we have an alcoholic drink, we can get tipsy straight away, but as we drink more, it takes more drinks, right? So it's asking us to think about the ways that we get our highs. Another way this may work out. Maybe you're in a relationship where you're valued for what you provide rather than who you are, and the positive opportunity of whatever comes to your attention, however this works for you, is clarity about your authentic needs versus your conditioned wants, right? And it also increases our charisma, and it is the season where there's more office parties and socializing, right? It's Christmas, that season. So it brings, the opportunity for deep emotional bonding when you're willing to be vulnerable about your real needs, not the polished version, but the messy human truth. But the challenge is you might try to shop your way, spend your way, intoxicate your way through the discomfort. You may spend to fill the void. You might mistake temporary pleasure for lasting happiness. So this full moon supports releasing toxic relationship patterns and financial dependencies, but you have to be willing to look at the shadow first and then take the time to do the work, right? Okay, so we've also got the moon squaring the moon's north node and the sun squaring the moon's north node as well. So this is a really important aspect, these two, as the North Node represents our evolutionary path, as I said earlier, and it's currently in Aquarius, calling us towards change and innovation, contributing more to our communities, to our family, to ourselves, and just more future-orientated ways of being, breaking away from, what the world tells us to be and express ourselves and finding out our own authentic expression. And with both the sun and moon squaring the moon's north node, it creates friction between our comfort zone and our soul's growth direction. That voice saying, but what if I need this later? Or, but this is how I've always done it. That's Taurus resisting the north node's needs to grow and evolve, right? And maybe your north node is pulling you towards more collaborative projects, working with others, but you're resisting because you're worried about financial security. Or maybe you've been called to embrace, be open to new technologies or ways of working, but you're clinging to traditional approaches because they feel safer. And you know how the world's kind of going crazy about AI now. Now AI, like everything in the world, it has its good and up points, right? It's not completely bad and it's not completely good. It's all about moderation, right? So thinking about ways you can embrace new technologies to further your career, to further your education, your spirituality, your exercises and a routine and stuff like that. And these squares reveal where material attachments are blocking your, path to grow and evolve, right? Where your need for personal security is preventing you from participating in collective growth, where your comfort zone has become a prison rather than a sanctuary. And the opportunity here is to recognize that true security doesn't come from holding tightly to what you have. It comes from your capacity to be flexible, to adapt, to contribute, to flow with change, letting go of the belief that you can protect yourself by staying small, staying comfortable and staying stuck, right? Now I'm going to talk a bit about the Nat Chakra that the moon's in, and it's in Roni Nat Chakra, and this is ruled by the moon itself. And this is fascinating because it doubles down on the lunar, emotional, material themes we're working with during this full cold supermoon. And Roni spans from the 10th to the 23rd degree of Taurus in sidereal astrology, and the 19th degree of Taurus falls in the third pada, which is ruled by Gemini and Mercury. And this pada emphasizes communication about values, mental flexibility around material matters, and the ability to see multiple perspectives on security, right? And the deity of Roni is Prajapati, the creator. But there's a shadow story here. In Vedic mythology, Prajapati became so obsessed with his own daughter's beauty that he pursued her inappropriately, and this mythological pattern reveals Roni's core shadow, attachment to material beauty and sensory pleasure to the point of obsession. The gift of Rohini is the ability to create, nurture and bring forth abundance. The shadow is becoming consumed by your own creations, possessing rather than creating, hoarding rather than generating. You're being asked, are you creating abundance or are you obsessed with acquiring it? Are you nurturing what matters or hoarding what doesn't? Rahini's energy is lush, fertile and generative, right? So think of it as a garden in full bloom with all the flowers, all the vegetables, all the strawberries or apples, pears, whatever you like, right? Leeks, potatoes, whatever, in full bloom, and it's abundant, right? But it can also be indulgent, possessive and resistant to change. The bull, which is representative of Taurus energy, sits contentedly, happily in this beautiful garden, unwilling to move even when the season changes. And if that sounds familiar, sometimes, as I said, us humans love our comfort zone, right? So this analogy may sound familiar to you, and that's exactly the Taurus full moon challenge. The moon ruler, Rahini, creates a double lunar emphasis. Your emotions are particularly increased. Your need for comfort is intensified. Your resistance to change is also intensified. But here's what's brilliant. The moon's natural rulership here also gives you access to deep emotional intelligence about what you genuinely need versus what you've been conditioned to want. And the third parter's Mercury influence adds a gift of the ability to communicate about your needs, to talk yourself through the release process, to mentally understand why letting go of whatever you need to let go of serves you for the long run, right? So use this, journal, write, voice record yourself, vlog yourself, just for your own viewing pleasure. Speak your truth out loud. Let Mercury help you think your way through what Taurus wants to hold on to. So how do you work with Rahini's energy during this full moon? Well, the evolutionary purpose of Rahini is to learn the difference between appreciation and attachment. You're meant to enjoy material beauty without being enslaved by it, to value security without clinging to false security, to nurture what grows rather than hoard what's already dead. Ask yourself, what have you created in your life, possessions, relationships, identities that you've become so attached to that you can't evolve beyond them? What beauty are you tying to your own that has and was only ever meant to be appreciated? The shadow of Rahini manifests as jealousy, possessiveness and material obsession. If you're feeling any of these during this full moon, or if you struggled with these in your life, right, that's your signal. Those feelings are showing you where you have mistaken ownership for security. The gift is when you stop trying to possess beauty and simply allow yourself to be nourished by it, you become a curator rather than a consumer. You generate abundance rather than chase it. You nurture growth rather than hoard what's dying, right? So now I'm going to talk about the different Sabian symbols that are affecting, influencing this full cold supermoon, right? So yeah, stay with me here because this symbolism is fascinating and I promise it's more practical than it sounds, right? So the sun is at the 19th degree Scorpio and the Sabian symbol is apparent listening and then talking, and repeats a conversation he has overheard, and it rules the bladder, the vessel that holds and releases what no longer serves. The moon's at the 19th degree of Taurus and the Sabian symbol is a new continent rises out of the ocean, and it rules the maxillary artery, the blood vessel feeding your upper jaw, symbolizing nourishment and the ability to speak your truth. And Venus is at the 12th degree of Scorpio and it has the Sabian symbology of an official embassy ball, and it rules the reproductive organs, the creative power of generation and transformation. So in terms of the combined influences these Sabian symbols have on your emotional health, these symbols work together to create a powerful message about authenticity. Think of your emotional body like a garden during this full moon. Some plants have completed their cycle and need compassing. The parrot reveals where you've been repeating emotional stories that are not yours, and the rising continent is your authentic emotional truth finally breaking the surface. The embassy ball shows where you've been performing emotions rather than feeling them. In terms of your spiritual health, there's beautiful spiritual progression here. You're moving from repetition, which is represented by the parrot symbology, right, to revolution, to truth, which is newness, which is the rising continent, and to authentic representation, which is being yourself at the ball, not performing. And when I work with these symbols myself, I notice how much energy I wasted in my life, maintaining, facades, wearing masks, people pleasing and all of that. And the full moon asks us to drop the performance, right, to be ourselves, and it helps us to do so, to start the work or continue the work to do so, right. In terms of physical health, the body parts tell an important story. Your bladder, which is all about holding and releasing, our jaw, which is about speaking our truth, versus clenching our jaw, right, and our reproductive creative center, what we've been birthing, what's completing, are all connected. For instance, if you've been experiencing tension in your jaw, your body is literally showing you where you're not releasing or speaking your needs. In terms of your psychological health, from a psychological perspective, you're examining inherited narratives. What stories about money and security are you repeating that you didn't originate, right? And Jung would call this working with your personal versus collective unconscious, discerning which beliefs are genuinely yours versus, absorbed from family or culture. And in terms of integrating these historic meanings, right, as these symbols together represent a deep shift from conditioned responses to authentic creation, right, guys? So positively, the parrot teaches us that to become aware of what we've just been repeating and believing in without questioning, and we all do this, right? We all are born into our cultures, our religions, our nation's beliefs, and we just say, well, this is my religion, this is what my family believes, so I believe it, right? So it's asking us to, change from conditioned responses to authentic creation, to authentic self-expression. And the rising continent reveals, shows us what's authentic. Underneath all that repetition, the embassy board shows you that you can present your authentic self in social spaces without performing, and together they offer us freedom from second-hand beliefs and wants us to, give birth to genuine values from our own thought processes and critical thinking. But negatively, the shadow side and the esoteric level, and there's always a shadow side, right, is that you might resist the emergence, the newness of new thoughts, right? You might prefer the familiar ocean, the beliefs that you've been taught to believe, right, than the unknown new land. And you might cling to the old stories because at least they're known, even if they're limiting. And the embassy ball can also represent social performance that's so habitual that you've forgotten it's not real, right? So in terms of, the lunar magic, because, we have to add a bit of sparkle to life, right? A bit of woo-woo. So to work with this energy magically, I suggest that for 3 days following this full moon, you do this practice. In the morning, identify one belief about money or security you're ready to release, which is the parrot, right? The symbology, I told you it makes sense. I use symbols because us humans, we love symbols. We need analogies like, rain and thunder and blooms and seeds and whatever. So that's why I like to give it to you guys. So yeah, so in the morning, identify one belief about money or security that you are ready to release, right, which is the parrot. Write it down. Midday, sit in the darkness and ask what new understanding is emerging, the continent. Then journal whatever surfaces without judgment. In the evening, identify one way you've been performing your values versus living them. This is the embassy ball, and commit to one authentic action tomorrow. So I'm just going to talk a bit about Sabian degrees and why I use them. So Elsie Wheeler, helped by Mark Edmund Jones, originally channeled these Sabian symbols that all have different archetypical meanings, right? And the 19th degree of Taurus for Jones represented emergence of new forms from the unconscious depths, which perfectly describes the rising continent, right? And so it's solid ground appearing where there was only uncertainty, which is Lydia's Hill, who upgraded the Sabian symbols interpretation of this degree. And the rising continent connects to the archetype of Lemuria, so stay with me because there's a purpose to this, or Atlantis. So these are lost lands that rise again, and cross-culturally this appears in the Mu legends of the Pacific, in the Aboriginal Australian Dreamtime stories of land emerging from the sea, and in the Hindu myths of continents rising and falling with the ages, right? And in humanity's deep psychological recognition that what will submerge will eventually surface. And then if we watch the cycles of nature, we see that we have summer, then autumn always comes again in the places that have summer, autumn, spring and winter, right? Because I'm aware not all places in the earth goes through the seasons, and some places have more winter, have more spring, whatever. But ultimately, it's about what's hidden now in the water will rise and what's on the surface will submerge, but not to be scared of that, because it will have its time again. And the 19th degree of Taurus has historically manifested during times of material restructuring, and we see that we're going through a bit of this catchphrase that a lot of people are saying now is not in this economy, because we experience a lot of cost of living things. And so this degree normally appears when there's financial crashes followed by new economic systems, personal bankruptcy followed by rebuilt wealth on more authentic foundations. And what the Sabian symbol shows about timing is that development, change is inevitable. We can't stop change, right? That's the only certainty, along with death, that life will change, right? But timing and change and development happens according to natural laws. It's not forced effort. You can't rush a continent's coming and rising, right? So it's all about giving yourself the time to change. This is Taurus, full super cold moon, right? And Taurus energy is all about planning and stable, getting what you want. Like the bull, it's not like the dog. The dog can move quicker, but the bull is slow, but it's weighty, and it gets there eventually. It gets to its goal because a bull can beat a dog 9 times out of 10 in a fight, and lost, the dog bites at its ankles and incapacitates the bull. But anyway, that's another story. So in terms of the holistic real life uses of these Sabian symbols, as I said, the parrot teaches us that we need to start catching ourselves when we're repeating cycles in our life, right? Like toxic relationships. When you hear yourself saying, I can't afford that, or money doesn't go in trees, pause. Is that your truth, or are you parroting a limitation someone else installed? And of course, money doesn't go in trees, but if you plant like lots of grapes or fruit, and you can turn that into money, right? So it's about, allowing yourself to grow and not be, sort of boxed in by others' limitations. And the rising continent reminds you that emergence takes time, and that tectonic plates don't shift overnight. Be patient with your transformation. Trust the process even when you can't see the results yet, right? And the embassy ball asks, who are you performing for? What would it look like to manage your money for your pleasure rather than social approval, right? So in terms of integrated well-being strategies, for instance, if you're feeling anxiety about your finances, try this. Notice when anxiety hits. Ask yourself, is this my anxiety, or did I learn this fear from someone else? This is power awareness, being aware of the stories others have been telling you, right? Then ask yourself, what truth is trying to emerge beneath this fear? which is the rising continent from the Sabian symbology, right, where the moon's at, this full cold moon. And then finally, ask yourself, how can I respond authentically instead of performing what I think I should feel, which is the embassy ball authenticity. So in terms of when we put all of these Sabian symbols together, what comes up and emerges is this: you're being called to start repeating inherited limitations. Allow your authentic relationship with resources to surface and present that authenticity in your life without social performance. This isn't just about you, it's about breaking generational patterns around money and worth that your family, your culture, your entire collective has been repeating. For release work, these symbols support letting go of second-hand beliefs, social performances around wealth, and false identities built on material accumulation, just, accumulating cars, money, jewelry, whatever it is you accumulate, sneakers, whatever, books, whatever, for status, and the work is, real, proper real, but so is the solid ground waiting to emerge when you finally stop clutching to the familiar, limiting stories, and allow yourself to be who you truly are. Now I'm going to talk about the karma of this full moon in Taurus, right? So I have noticed something about full moons in Taurus. They reveal where you've confused safety with imprisonment. This isn't just about releasing stuff, though that's part of it. This is about the deeper karmic lesson, learning that true security comes from your capacity to trust the cycles rather than control the outcomes. So positively, you're learning that value isn't determined by accumulation, that your worth isn't measured by your bank account, your possessions, or your productivity. You're here to embody the truth that you are valuable simply because you exist. Negatively, you're confronting patterns of hoarding, as I said earlier, whether that's resources, emotions, or opportunities. You're facing the ways you've tried to control life through material means. You're seeing how the very things you thought protected you actually limited you. My advice is to let go before you're forced to let go, right? Release consciously rather than having life rip things from your grip. Trust that what's meant for you won't require you to hold on desperately. Talking from experience with countless clients who've worked with this energy, I have seen the same patterns emerge. The ones who resist this full moon's call to release, they end up having things forcibly removed, The ones who lean into the release, they experience it as liberation rather than loss, right? So if we're going to talk a bit more deeper about the karmic meaning of the nodes, right? So as I said, the full moon is squaring the North Node in Aquarius, which means it's directly challenging our growth direction, right? The North Node in astrology represents where our soul needs to grow towards community, innovation, and collective contribution. But the full Taurus moon is pulling us back towards personal security, individual accumulation, and familiar comforts. The South Node in Leo, which is opposite where the North Node is now because it's in Aquarius, in the 11th house, and opposite that is Leo in the 5th house, right? And this represents what you're releasing: self-centered creative expression, individual recognition seeking, just it all be me, look at me, that sort of thing, and personal drama. And the full moon is showing us all where we're still clinging to our South Node patterns, right, through material means. Maybe you're using possessions to maintain status, which is represented by the Leo South Node. Maybe you're holding on to resources because you're afraid of not being special or recognized, which is also Leo's fear. Your soul's journey is asking you to move from mine to ours, from personal security to collective contribution, from hoarding creative energy to sharing it freely. And this full moon creates the necessary discomfort to make that choice consciously, right? So in terms of the karmic patterns, right, it's bringing, illuminating specific karmic gifts and debts around resources. The karmic gift is our natural ability to create material abundance. You likely came in with talents for manifestation, for appreciating beauty, for grounding spiritual truths in practical form. These are soul gifts you developed over lifetimes. And the karmic debt that's showing up now for soul is patterns of greed, possessiveness, or using material power to control others. And you may be saying, well, you know, I can sing, but I'm not like a superstar or whatever. I believe that we've all got a gift, whether it's drawing, being able to talk to people. You know, it's not about moving millions of people's lives. Some of us have that gift, but some of us have gifts that can move like 100 people's life or one person, and that's what we're meant to do. So it's about, you know, respecting the gifts that you have and not comparing it to others as well. Also, you know, working with what you have as well and sharing that unbiasedly. And I know it can be hard because people can be horrible and criticize the way we talk, the way we look and all of this. And this is why it's important to work on ourselves to build that stable core. So, you know, when the people say, because people always talk stuff, it affects us less and less, right? Also, in terms of the patterns of greed and possessiveness, patterns of poverty consciousness, self-desire, or refusing to receive abundance because you don't feel worthy will come up as well. Your soul remembers times when you were either abusing material power or were traumatized by material lack. And this full moon asks you to heal both, and ancestral patterns are surfacing too. Like, what did your family teach you about money, security and wealth? Those patterns didn't just start with your parents, they're generational. You're being asked to be the one who breaks the cycle. The work is real, but so is the transformation available to you, right? So how do you work with this full moon energy, right? How do you actually do the work with this full moon energy, right? Let's get proper practical and talk about what you actually need to do. So in terms of your material possessions, you know, that you're keeping just in case but never actually use, the clothes that don't fit you, the books you'll never read, the garden gadgets and the kitchen gadgets and all of that are gathering dust. They're not security, they're clutter blocking flow. In terms of your financial fears that keep you playing small, the belief that there's never enough, the anxiety that makes you check your bank account obsessively, and fear isn't protecting you, it's imprisoning you. So it can be hard because we are sort of going through a period where, you know, we're going through the cost of living, like I said, but sometimes, you know, this energy is asking us to actually just work with what we've got as well and see things of, you know, I was talking about the seasons and changes up and down, the land, what we are on now will go beneath the sea, and what's beneath the sea will rise up. So it's about making a plan to work with what you have and to make a plan to whatever your financial situation is to improve it in small steps and not to hold yourself back out of fear, right? Also, when it comes to our relationships, a lot of our relationships are maintained out of habit, guilt or fear rather than genuine connection, and friendships that feel like obligations or relationships, you know, or the family dynamics where you've always been the one who gives, and the romantic relationships where you're valued for what you provide rather than who you are. So it's wanting us to, you know, release these things, you know, and also old values that are inherited from our family that don't align with who you have become or who you want to be, and the belief that success means a certain income level, the idea that your worth is determined by productivity, because we all, when we really sit down, everyone's got their own number. So some people having £100 left over every month will be great, some people it'd be 1,000, some people having 10,000 in the bank be great, for some people it's 1 million, some people it's, I don't know, £20. You know, it's about finding your idea of success rather than what society tells us success is. In terms of the shadow work opportunities for this full cold supermoon, right, as it's asking us to confront some uncomfortable truths, right? You know, what I've been going through isn't easy, so stay with me here, and if you're still here, thank you, because this is where most people bow out, you know, the shadow work, but this is where the real transformation happens if you're willing. So in terms of your shadow work around scarcity, you can ask yourself, how do you behave when you're afraid there won't be enough? Do you hoard? Do you overconsume? Do you withhold from yourself or others? Do you get controlling? Look at their behavior without judgment, just witness it. That's your survival programming running. In terms of your shadow around worth, Ask yourself, what do you believe makes you valuable? If you stripped away your income, your possessions, your accomplishments, who would you be? Would you still be worthy of love, security and belonging? If that answer frightens you, that's what this full moon is here to heal for you, right? In terms of your shadow around control, ask yourself, where are you trying to control outcomes through material means? How are you using money, possessions or resources to feel safe? What would happen if you couldn't control it anymore? Sit with that fear. Don't try to fix it, just feel it. In terms of practical uses, right? Financially, what I would do would be complete a financial inventory within 48 hours of the full moon peak. Pull up every account, every credit card, every subscription, every outstanding debt, look at it all. You can't release what you're not willing to see. In terms of creative completion, the full moon is about completing creative projects that you've been holding past their expiration date, You know that project you started 2 years ago that you keep saying you'll finish but never do. Let it go. The creative venture you poured money into but your heart's not in it anymore. Release it. Your body will show you what needs attention during this full moon. Paying attention to your throat, neck, shoulders. As I said before, this is where Taurus holds tension. Your jaw, if you're clenching, not speaking your truth, holding back your truth. Your lower back, your lumbar region. This holds fear around security. And of course, Taurus is all about, the things that make us feel secure, but at this full cold supermoon, it's asking us to really get real about whether we're just staying in our comfort zone. Are the things we're holding on to really giving us security or just a false sense of security? So now I'm going to give guidance for all of the 12 sun, moon and rising signs. So Aries, this full moon activates your second house of income and self-worth. You're releasing the belief that your value is determined by how much you produce or earn. Let go of the hustle mentality that's depleting your resources. You're being called to find security in simply being rather than constantly doing. Your impulsive spending, when you're frustrated, it's time to confront that pattern. For instance, if you're an Aries with Mars in your first house, you may feel this as intense frustration with anything that feels limiting, but that frustration is actually pointing towards what needs releasing. Taurus, with the full moon in your house of identity and self-expression, you're called to release aspects of your self-image that no longer reflect your authentic evolution. This is, proper powerful. It's a time to let go of stubborn attachment to who you've been and open to who you are becoming, releasing physical tensions held in your body, particularly around neck and shoulders, to do massages, and stretches to release that tension. Consider how your appearance might evolve to better reflect your inner growth. Start performing stability and start embodying flexibility. If you're resisting change, ask yourself, what am I actually protecting by staying the same? Gemini, this full moon activates your 12th house of the unconscious, bringing hidden fears around security and substance to the surface. You're releasing anxiety about having enough time, enough money, enough stability. Your scattered approach to finances, it's time to ground that. Dreams may be particularly revealing now, offering insights into subconscious scarcity patterns. Let yourself have quiet time for deep processing instead of distancing yourself with constant mental stimulation. The anxiety isn't the problem, it's the messenger showing you what needs healing. Cancer, the full moon illuminates your 11th house of community and future vision, highlighting tensions between your need for personal security and your role in collective plans. You're releasing friendships or group affiliations that drain your resources without reciprocity, without give and take, without people giving anything back. They're just taking, right? Let go of fears about sharing your gifts with the wider community. Stop hoarding your talents out of self-protection. Choose security security comes through connection, not isolation. You know this already, you just haven't been living it. For instance, if you've got your moon in Cancer in the 4th house, you might feel torn between nurturing your family and contributing to the broader community, but this full moon shows you don't have to choose. Leo, this full moon in your 10th house of career and public recognition is calling you to release attachment to material status, symbols and external validation in your professional life. You're letting go of career paths that you've pursued, gone after for security rather than passion. The tension between your authentic self-expression and your public image, it's time to resolve that by choosing authenticity. Start performing success and start embodying purposeful work. If you're a Leo with Sun in the 5th house, you might feel this as a conflict between creative expression and professional expectations, but your real work is aligning both, right? Virgo, the full moon activates your 9th house of higher learning and beliefs, challenging you to release limited thinking about what's practically possible. You're letting go of mental restrictions based on realistic assessments that actually reflect fear rather than wisdom, and that's realistic in comments, right? Because it's not realistic. As I said, this full moon is all about releasing the beliefs that we've been told to believe, not what are actually true, but we've come to believe them as truth because, we've just gone along with them. So Virgo, your perfectionism in your learning journey is also blocking your growth, right? Release the need to have everything figured out before you take action. Sometimes wisdom comes through the leap, not the plan. For instance, if you've been researching that course or certification for months without enrolling, the full moon asks, what am I actually afraid of? So, ask yourself that. Libra, this full moon illuminates your 8th house of shared resources, intimacy and transformation, bringing attention to power dynamics around money and value in your closest relationships. You're releasing imbalanced financial entanglements and patterns of using material gifts as substitutes for emotional intimacy. Let go of the need to maintain harmony at the expense of honest conversations about resources. Start performing balance and start living authentic equality. If you're a Libra with Venus in the 7th house, you might be realizing that keeping peace by avoiding money conversations has actually created resentment. For instance, Scorpio, with the full moon in your 7th house of partnerships opposite your Sun, you're releasing control patterns in your closest relationships. Let go of the need to manage shared resources from a place of distrust or fear. You're confronting your tendency to use emotional intensity as a way to maintain power. Take time to release relationships where values fundamentally misalign, making space for connections that honor both material and material needs with equal respect. You can't transform what you're trying to control. For instance, if you've been monitoring your partner's spending while hiding your own, this full moon exposes this hypocrisy, so truth can come to light for you, Scorpio, especially around joint resources, right? Sagittarius, this full moon activates your 6th house of daily routines, health and service, calling you to release inefficient work habits and material disorganization. You're letting go of possessions that complicate rather than simplify your daily life. Release the mindset that more material comfort automatically equals greater well-being. Your tendency to overindulge when freedom feels restricted. Confront that pattern. Find balance between enjoyment and excess. If you're a Sagittarius with Jupiter in the 9th house, you might be realizing that your quest for freedom has created chaos rather than liberation, right? And Capricorn, the full moon illuminates your 5th house of creativity, pleasure and self-expression, challenging you to release conservative approaches to enjoyment and creative risks. You're letting go of the belief that pleasure must be earned or that creative pursuits plans must have practical value to be worthwhile. Stop treating joy like a reward for productivity. Release investments, emotional and financial, in creative projects that are no longer actually bringing you joy and happiness. Your heart knows what's complete. For instance, if you've been forcing yourself to finish that side business that stopped being fun months ago, this full moon gives you the permission to let it go, you know. Aquarius, this full moon in your 4th house squares your North Node, creating proper, powerful tension between your past conditioning around material security and your evolving future pathway. You're releasing or being called to release ancestral generational patterns of defining safety through possessions or physical stability. Let go of emotional attachments to specific locations or living situations that restrict your freedom to evolve. Your resistance to traditional security is valid, but make sure you're not just rebelling without building something new. For instance, if you're Aquarius with Uranus in the 11th house, you might be realizing that your fear of being trapped has actually prevented you from creating any foundation at all. Pisces, the full moon activates your 3rd house of communication, learning and local environment, calling you to release material inflexibility, rigidity, you know, and limited thinking about practical matters. You're letting go of the need to categorize information into practical versus spiritual, finding ways to integrate both perspectives. Release communication habits that oversimplify complex material realities or avoid difficult conversations about, you know, touchable, tangible needs. Ground your spiritual insights into practical action. For instance, if you've been praying for financial abundance while refusing to look at your bank statements, this full moon asks you to do both the spiritual work and the practical work, you know. So yeah, that's the end of the zodiac guidance. So in terms of action steps, this is, you know, I'm bringing it all together for you guys. So if you want to, you know, do a 7-step action plan, here it is for the full moon. So paying attention to whatever your sun, moon or rising sign is, the guidance I give there and the other guidance I've given throughout. Step 1, within 24 hours, list 5 physical possessions you're releasing before the new year, extra items you're committed to releasing by the month's end. Make sure that these items are gone, you know. Step 4, within 48 hours, look at your bank statement from the last 3 months. Identify one recurring expense that doesn't align with your authentic values anymore. Cancel it this week. Step 3, have one difficult conversation about money or values you've been avoiding with a partner, family member, employer, etc. Not to complain, but to speak your truth about what you need and value. Step 4, by the 11th of December, complete one financial task you've been procrastinating on. File that paperwork, update that budget, close that account. Step 5, this is an ongoing step, right? Each morning, ask yourself what I am holding on to today that I could release, you know, and each evening identify one thing you release, even if it's a limiting thought, you know. And this isn't optional if you want results. It's the work. It's unglamorous but necessary. And I think I said it was a 7-step plan, but it's actually 5. So yeah. So now I'm just going to give you some more self-reflection questions that can help you. So you can grab your journal and sit with these questions as well, as if you ain't got enough, right? So in terms of the financial material, you know, as I said, you know, it's important to get clear on the material possessions that you're holding on to, just in case, that actually represent fear rather than you being prepared, you know. Be brutally honest. That storage unit you're paying for, those boxes you haven't opened in years, what are you really afraid will happen if you let them go? In terms of your emotional and spiritual needs, ask yourself, where am I confusing security with control, and how is this limiting my growth? And security feels like trust and groundedness, right? That's what it's meant to feel like, not control. And control feels like anxiety and grip. Can you tell the difference in your body? Where are you trying to control outcomes rather than trusting the process? In terms of your purpose and growth, ask yourself what outdated values that you inherited from your family or culture that you're ready to release to be more open to your authentic relationship with abundance. Also, you can try and finish this sentence, right? I should value, and there's a blank, right? So fill in that blank, because that's what success looks like Now ask, is that what I really value, or is that programming? Remember, no judgment, just awareness, because that's important, because sometimes we find out our faults and then we go in the spiral of shame and guilt and blame and trying to get back the years we can't. All we can do is move forward, right, and bring awareness and be gentle with yourself, because we've all been programmed to the hilt. Like, imagine 100 GB hard drive in your computer, your 99.99 GBs have been filled with programming that's toxic to our life. So it's not about blame either, it's about the awareness of that and then reprogramming all of that, right? So to bring all of this together, here's what matters the most, right, about this full cold supermoon in Taurus, is that it gives us a deep opportunity to reset our entire relationship with the material world, our possessions. The Sabian symbol of the new continent rising from the ocean, that's you. That's what emerging when you finally release what no longer serves you. The key themes are centered on reassessing what you truly value, releasing material attachments driven by fear rather than authentic appreciation and expression, and finding the balance between comfort and necessary transformation, the necessary change. And the challenge, which is the square with the sun and the moon to the north node, right, reminds us that evolution often requires releasing familiar securities, our comfort zone, to be open to new ways of being. And here's what I want you to remember, is that true abundance comes not from accumulation, but from flow, the capacity to both receive and release with equal grace, right? Use this powerful cold moon to complete your year-end releasing process. What possessions, habits, relationships or beliefs about security are you ready to release before 2026 begins? This full moon in Taurus provides the perfect energetic container for this important work. Not someday, not when it feels easier, now. The work is real, but so is the transformation available to you. You've got this, trust the timing. So yeah, I hope some of this made sense to you. Thanks for listening to me if you stayed with me to the end, right? I'm Amani, your holistic karmic astrological life coach, and this has been a true deep dive into the full cold supermoon on the 4th of December 2025. Take care and see you next time.